I hope you're enjoying a little downtime from the football during this international window. We're just coming out of our spring break. We've had 2 straight weeks of drizzle and rain, which has been glorious. And on a recent show, I said that I think there's going to be a mass exodus from Villa Park this summer, and many of the comments asked me to elaborate on that, and so I thought I'd do a show about that. In fact, it's quite amazing to see how many fringe players we have on the books, and if you add them all together, there's a decent return potentially there, and we may also be seeing the end of some core Aston Villa players as this season winds down. Who knows? Let's explore it with one of my favorite scotches from a distillery called Scapa in the Orkney Isles. In fact, I loved their 14. I hoarded it. I bought a case of it when the distillery changed hands. And sure enough, they stopped making that scotch. But this one's pretty good as well. As we look forward to the summer and what's going to happen at Aston Villa. Welcome inside the parlor. I have one of my favorite scotches, definitely one of my all-time favorite tops on. How good was this from Luke Roper, by the way, with the navy and pink badge? And it's been a very good international window for our senior players and even some of our youth players too. Let's hope they all stay healthy. After the very disappointing Arsenal game, though, Steven Gerrard went on camera, BT Sports, I believe, and made some comments that certainly drew the attention of many. This is what he said.
I thought certain individuals lacked a little belief, so it's difficult to execute a game plan, what you want and how you want it to look if not everyone believes in it.
The interviewer, by the way, was longtime journalist Des Kelly, and just after this exchange, Steven Gerrard got very defensive about the comment over one shot on target in the second half. And had a right go at Des. I mean, this is modern day football now. You don't have to just manage your players. You have to manage the messaging in the media and exert your authority a little bit over the journalists. But regardless, the key comment was some of his players did not believe in the plan against a team that was in 4th place at the time, something Aston Villa wants to emulate in the very near future. Now, of course, those comments led to wild speculation. Who was he talking about? And my mind immediately drifted to John McGinn, and I've said it numerous times on this show. Meatball's biggest club career challenge is game-to-game consistency. Seems like anytime he slips on a Scotland jersey, he's dominant for his country, but for his club, there are ups and there are downs, and you need more than that in the Premier League. I also drifted a little bit towards Ollie Watkins because it was not a good outing for Villa's number 9, and when Gerrard made those comments, he clearly said it was a number of players who didn't believe in what they were doing. When a manager publicly diverts blame onto his players, that is a big move and a cultural red flag that signals consequences down the road, for sure. You do that when you've played all your other cards publicly and privately, and then you have that last one up your sleeve, and when you pull that one out and throw professional footballers under the bus, there is kind of a point of no return in that dressing room. And we knew that Steven Gerrard came in with exceedingly high standards, and so it's only natural that there was going to be some players in that dressing room that were not able to, at least today, meet those standards. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, come these rumors just days later linking Aston Villa to Calvin Phillips and even Paul Pogba. Now, they had been in on Calvin Phillips just after their promotion year, but I rate this player certainly. I was blown away by him, quite frankly, for England at the tournament because he's way, way more than a 6. And without having watched him really closely at Leeds, that surprised me. He could be a 6 or he could be an 8. Is he worth 60 million quid? And can they afford the salary? Apparently 10 million per season. Well, they can't unless they make some significant house cleaning moves this summer, which is what this show is about. But it's the timing of the post-Arsenal comments with just days later the links to Calvin Phillips for 60 million quid that has my radar up. And it probably is that type of player and that type of outlay that is what's going to get Villa from here to here, which is the hardest step to take in the Premier League, because it's not just about changing the quality on the field. It's about changing the entire mindset and mentality of the club. Steven Gerrard needs to bring in the type of players who say, Arsenal at home, we expect to win that game and win it comfortably. As someone who played for an historic club that just expected to win things, heck, he was part of the fabric of a group that expected to win major trophies. Steven Gerrard knows exactly the type of human being that needs to come into his current environment and push everybody else around that player. We see the quality on the field, but it's the other 95% of the work that is done by these kinds of players that will determine whether the group as a whole has the belief to go on and win things. And that's what we're all in it for. That's what Gerrard's in it for. That's what the players are in it for. Heck, that's what we're in it for, winning things. And that's why I think him dropping that word belief a couple times post-Arsenal is significant. So, in addition to recruiting believers this summer, Johan Lange has a big job on his hands because he has to clear out some of the fringes of the squad. Most of these players are on loan. All of them, I doubt, are coming back to the squad, so he has to maximize the potential incoming revenue. And make no mistake, Steven Gerrard knows right now which of his players are capable of meeting his demands and which are not. I want to show you a list of players that I would consider fringe to Aston Villa. 6 players who are all on loan, highly doubtful to return. Maybe 1 or 2 might get their loans extended, but I doubt it. And only Anwar El Ghazi in this group is not playing regular football right now, so I've taken some very conservative transfer estimates on the low side from Transfer Market. But if you take all those and Johan Lange can maximize anything close to those valuations, he's bringing in 39 million quid. That's 1 really good player or 2 half-decent players for the Premier League from 6 people who will likely never play first-team football with Aston Villa again. Now, the next tier of players are the ones that get into the game day squads but rarely start, rarely see significant minutes. Unfortunately, all of them have had injuries, and let's be honest, they were all recruited for a different style of play under a different manager. I look at this as the secondary group of potential outgoing transfers, and I'll be very curious to see what happens to 1, 2, or all 3 of these players because 2 of them have only just arrived in Leon Bailey and Morgan Sanson. But when Steven Gerrard started overhauling Rangers, he was stockpiling number 10s and number 9s or players who can play in both of those kinds of positions for either a 4-3-2-1 or a 4-3-1-2. Do you see Bailey as a 9 or a 10? No. How about Traore? Same thing. And Morgan Sanson just has not featured under either Smith or Steven Gerrard. And none of them really look all that happy, do they? So this could be a distress sale, especially given that all 3 of them have had recent injury problems. So I've gone on the very conservative side again from Transfer Market. But even if Johan Lange managed to get somewhere close to those valuations for these 3 players who still have a lot of potential, that's still 55 million quid incoming. Again, I'm trying to be really conservative with these numbers, and we also have to take into account what the players themselves want. Do they want a fresh start? Because it just hasn't worked this past year with Aston Villa. And we also need to consider the young players that are coming up and through. Cameron Archer, Jadon Philogene-Bidace, Kane Kessler-Hayden, Tim Ergbounam, and others. They need to see a pathway to the first team, just like the players now below them in the academy need to see a route into the U23s. So just from those 9 players I showed you, ones who were on the outside of the core group, the fringes and the secondaries, that's potentially transfer revenue anywhere between 85 and 95 million pounds if you sell them all and things go your way. But that's not where the real upgrading needs to occur. If you really want to change the mentality and the quality of Aston Villa, you're going to have to move on some players from your core group. Let's start with this very simple fact. Almost every single player is upgradable. But I have excluded from this list Emi Martinez, Ezri Konsa, Luca Dean, and Jacob Ramsey because I simply don't see any world in which they get moved on this summer. And here's some of the other core group candidates for upgrade. Do you see a midfield come August that includes McGinn, Louise, Ramsey, Sanson, Nakamba, Irigbunam, a 6, and another 8 because we've been linked to so many of them? I do not. I think it's actually riskier to sell a young player entering his prime rather than one that is already in it, like John McGinn. And McGinn has also been linked with some pretty big clubs over the last little while. I also don't see a world where Watkins, Ings, another striker, and Cameron Archer are all playing together come August. So those are some of the factors when I look at this list, and we've heard rumors about Matt Cash, but I don't think he should move on. So here again, conservative valuations from Transfer Market. Can you see one of these players being sold? Very possibly. How about 2? Maybe. Could you see 3 of these players being sold? That's a bit of a stretch. You got to be careful about continuity, but the value of these players right now is about $151 million. That's conservative. If you average them all out, that's $25 million per. So if you move 2 of them out, you could probably be expecting around $50 more million in revenue. And that brings us to Tyrone Mings. Take the emotion and the attachment of these last few seasons right out of the equation and ask yourself this very simple question. Have we seen the very best out of Tyrone Mings, or at 29 years of age, is there still another level or even 2 for him to achieve? I don't know if there is, and that's not an indictment on him as a footballer because he's still probably a Premier League center back. It may actually benefit him moving to a club that has slightly less expectations than Aston Villa. The fact that he's captain, though, does make this an awkward conversation. But the fact is, Tyrone Mings, like his teammates Ollie Watkins and John McGinn, core players, are not winners. They haven't won anything, and therefore they don't really know what it takes to win. And that's not an indictment on his character. That's just the fact. Are there players out there that can do what Tyrone Mings can do, maybe even better with the ball at their feet, footballing center backs, maybe more consistent, but are also winners? Have experienced what it takes to claim a title or a cup or European adventures? Yes, there are. So then it just comes down to one simple question: price. And if you're going to upgrade that position and move Tyrone Mings either 1 or 2 rungs down the ladder, he probably wouldn't agree to that. But these are the precise questions that Steven Gerrard and his coaching staff are asking themselves right now. And they're the questions they're going to have to ask in the summer. It's interesting when you lay it out that way, fringe players, secondary players, and then the core group. And I haven't even mentioned Carney Chukwuemeka because who knows where he's going to end up this summer. But then when you look at all those players, can you see now how 11 or 12 departures this summer is not really out of the question? Of course, you're wondering, well, who's going to replace 12 players this summer? And you know they're going after a 6, an 8, and a high-end striker. I'm pretty sure they'd love to upgrade at center back, which might mean another center back departure as well. And they're probably going to have to shore up some cover at both fullback positions. And before he integrates the high-potential youth, the Cameron Archer, the Philogene Bidace, the Irigbunam, the Kane Kessler-Hayden, all players who at times this year or last year looked like they could have actually served a purpose in the first team, I think Steven Gerrard wants to make absolutely sure that the environment around the squad is made up of winners and people who believe in what the club is doing and where they're going. We already know Villa want to try and bring back Phil Coutinho permanently this summer, which would be about a $30 to $40 million hit. And I think that would be easier if they commit similar resources to bring in other players of similar class and quality around him. And a couple of names we've heard, Luis Suarez and Gigi Wijnaldum, 2 top-class professionals who know how to win things. And they'd be lower on the transfer fee in, but higher on the back end and the salary, which could give Villa a lot of flexibility in trying to either tinker with or rebuild its core of players, especially if my math is correct on potential incoming transfer revenue. But most importantly, you would change the environment, which would be better to mentor the young players coming through. Listen, I know I could be way off with all this stuff, but the subtle hints that have come from Steven Gerrard, the comments, of course, and all the rumors makes me wonder whether or not we are going to see a lot of turnover this summer. And there's a balance between a lot of people coming and going and finding a little bit of continuity in this club that so badly needs it. But it does need to take a significant step if it wants to be where Steven Gerrard wants to be, which is way higher up the table. You know he is not satisfied with mediocre. Until Wolves, be well, enjoy, and up the mighty Villa.